Hello, my name is Kent Field, and thank you for tuning into this YouTube channel, The Bible versus Opinions. God bless you in your search for the truth. While all people have opinions on many subjects, including the Bible and religion, not all opinions carry the same weight or value. For example, would you go to a plumber for his advice on brain surgery? Would you go to a mechanic for his advice on heart surgery? The point is, not all opinions carry the same weight or value on a particular subject. That's why I'm not offering you my mere opinion, but Bible answers alone. So here's the challenge. Are you open to learning beyond your current understanding and knowledge of the Bible? If so, then this channel is for you. If these studies have helped you to grow in your understanding of the Bible, or even life itself, please like and subscribe and share this channel with others so that they too may be challenged and grow in their understanding of the Scriptures.
So we've had our opening prayer. We're starting our study now tonight, word by word, line by line, verse by verse of 1 Corinthians chapter 8. All right, 1 Corinthians chapter 8. It's if you look at the headings in the top of your Bibles, New American Standard says things sacrificed to idols and apostolic liberty. And King James will say Christian liberty is not to be abused. And then in the top, they're trying to tell you what you're about to read on that page, by and large. I'm going to keep referring to some of my notes in my KJV, King James Version, because I had a lot of notes in that Bible, and they're good notes, so I figured I'd share them with you. Some of them are like sermon points. You could actually make a sermon out of these things. In this chapter, there are three things that we need to consider or remember. That nothing should be judged merely in the light of knowledge. Now, knowledge is important. And what we're about to read, some people have used the verse that we're about to read as an excuse not to need to know. But Paul told the Ephesians, what was it, chapter 3? That when you read what I wrote, where is that? It's Ephesians, right? Nobody knows off the top of their head? Come on. Chapter 3, he says that by revelation there was made known to me the mystery as I wrote before to you in brief, and by referring to this when you read, you may understand or know my insight into the mystery of Christ, which in other generations was not made known to the sons of men, as it has now been revealed to his holy apostles and prophets by the Spirit. So you need to know. And when people say, use this verse, like when you're trying to share, I've had people when I try to share a verse or the truth about a verse, or their go-to response is, well, knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. So that means what to them? What are they trying to say? To me, they're trying to skirt the issue of learning something on whatever it was that I was sharing with them, and excusing their lack of knowledge and saying, but I have love. But can you really have or know love without knowledge? Knowledge of the word. When people say, Jesus, yes, the church or the Bible, no. I don't know the Bible very well, but I know Jesus. What does John chapter 1 say? Very plainly. In the beginning was the Word, And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And he was in the beginning with God. And if you skip on down to verse 14, it'll go on to say, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, glory as of the only begotten, or the unique one, of the Father, full of grace and truth. And John bore witness of him, crying out in the wilderness, saying, this is he who I said was going to come, he who comes after me that is higher in rank than I, because he existed before me. He's talking about Jesus in this whole context. You can't know Jesus without knowing the Word, because knowing the Word is knowing Jesus. However, can people have a book knowledge about something and not believe it or practice it?
Of course.
Of course. Satan quoted the Bible to Jesus when he took him in the wilderness to tempt him after 40 days. Satan knows the scriptures very well, but he doesn't want to follow them. Okay? So, for people to put a premium on knowledge above love, they don't understand Bible knowledge. People who put a premium on love above knowledge come on in, the water's fine. I admitted somebody. There he is. There he is. How you doing, brother? Oh, I see your picture. But that's okay. You're welcome to join. Just listen. You don't have to show me your picture. You don't want to. Okay. So we're talking about 1 Corinthians chapter 8. And as we go through this, we're talking about the fact that some people put a premium on love above knowledge. But what is the love of God? By this you'll know what? Love. Or that you love me. By this I'll know that you love me. What? Can anybody?
When you obey my commands.
He obeys my commands. That was one place that Jesus said, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments, right? In the book of John. He also said something about perfect love casts out fear, but that's love based on the word. That's in 1 John. When people wanted to have no fear of the judgment, he says, well, then follow the word and you'll have no fear. So a lot of people will use what we're about to read in chapter 8, verse 1 as an excuse for not knowing the Bible very well. And that they resist being taught. Now concerning, I'm going to read first from the New American Standard, then from the KJV of King James Version. Now concerning things sacrificed to idols, we know that we have all knowledge. All right, so first off, he's starting out saying, look, we know what we need to know. And we know that, right? We know that we have all knowledge. We know that we know. Got it?
Mine reads a little
Knowledge
differently than that.
Yours reads differently? What does yours say?
We know that we all have knowledge.
Okay, that we all have knowledge. Knowledge makes what? Arrogant, but love edified. So what he's going to say is, in this, there's 3 points we need to remember and consider when we go through chapter 8. Nothing should be judged merely in the light of knowledge alone. Even your knowledge of this then tempers how you're going to respond to somebody who may be a weaker brother or sister. Number 2 is that whatever is done should be done to edify and uplift. Again, in light of the word, not apart from the word, rooted in the word, and that requires what? Knowledge of the word. Otherwise, how can you do that? Like the people who say, I don't know much about the Bible, but I know Jesus. Well, then you don't know Jesus, because if you don't know the word became flesh and dwelt among us. So it's important. If you love me, you'll keep my commandments. Love puffs up, King James Version will say. Now, as to touching things offered to idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but charity or love edifies or edifieth. And if anyone thinks he knows anything, he knows nothing, yet as he ought to know. This one will say, if anyone supposes that he knows anything, he has not yet known what he ought to know. I have said this for the past 51 plus years that I've been in Christ, studying the Bible, is that the more I learn, the more I find out that the less I know. You understand what I just said? The more that I learn from the Bible, the more I find out that the less I know. So it's not like, well, I read, you'll also have people say, well, I read the Bible. I read the Bible through twice a year. Like, that's a great accomplishment. Well, it would be if you live it and you're learning to practice it, and you can admit, I'm finding something new every day. That's the right attitude. Because there's another expression that I have, and that is attitudes determine altitudes. You understand that? So, and then the third thing that we need to remember from this chapter is the power of one's example to even save or damn someone. Now, when people talk about how many have heard the expression, "Well, you're making me stumble, brother," or "You're making me stumble, sister"? Well, depends on what you're talking about. Am I going to make you fall away? Am I going to make you give up on Christ? Because that's what stumbling is here. It's not you're offended. Some people have used the word stumble to mean I'm offended. That's not what it's talking about. It's making you trip you up in your walk for Christ. It makes you stumble. Well, we'll see all that as we read on. So knowledge can make arrogant or puff up. Literally, it's to puff up, to inflate. Yeah, I know the Bible. Okay. But love does what? Edify. So what was the third point? Whatever we do, we should do toward what? Edification. Edify. Now, what does it mean to edify? What does the word mean?
To build someone up.
Right. Does that just make them feel good? Could you edify somebody by even convicting them and having them be thankful that they heard that and they got a chance to now learn something new? Would they be edified? Have you ever been edified by being convicted during a sermon? I have. I've been, and there's brother. I recognize you now, Amos Isaac, from Roosevelt. There he was. There he is. I recognize him now. So, anyway, he was one of the elders there before a lot of the big changes and shake-up over there.
He moved.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Anyway, I'll cut that part out of the video. Don't worry. Now he's going to say, through this whole thing, love is the key to this edification. Now let's keep reading and see how that works. But if anyone loves God, he is known by him. So more than saying you know God, what do you want? Him to know you. To be known by him. And that's again another good, strong sermon or preaching point to bring up to somebody. It's more important to you because if you're known by him, you have to know him to some degree, don't you? Therefore, verse 4. And whenever you see the word therefore in scripture, you have to ask the question. Go ahead, class. What do you have to ask?
What's it
I was
there for?
refusing to answer. What's it there for?
Oh no, I was muted. Sorry.
I was going to say, people, unmute your mics.
Yeah, you can unmute them. That's fine. If anyone, so when you see the word therefore, it's on the basis of what I just said. I'm going to make a point. So whenever you see the word therefore, what's it there for? Concerning the eating of things sacrificed to idols. We know that there is no such thing as an idol in the world, and that there is no God but one. Is his name Vishnu? Is his name Allah? Is his name? How many gods are there? According to scripture, how many gods are there?
Just one.
God, Father of all, who is above all, through all, and in all, right? Ephesians. Is that chapter 4 and verses 4 through 6? Off the top of my head. Okay, now we know that there's no such thing as an idol, but yet we can fall different. You know, through this whole study, I also often think about the things that we raise up as idols, right? False idols. Name some things that could become an idol to us, and or idols to your fellow family and relatives, and friends, co-workers.
Our possessions.
Our possessions. Anything that you bow down to and worship and serve more than God is what? It becomes an object of your attention, your devotion, your worship. How about popularity? How about just the position? Some people want to be preachers just because they want to be up front. When James said, "Let not many of you become teachers, knowing that upon us we will incur a what? A stricter judgment."
Harsher judgment. Yeah.
Yeah, stricter. So, we know that there's no God but one. He's going to say it again, too. For even though there are so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, but he said, you know, there people call them that. There are many gods, there are many lords. We know that in the world, but there really isn't. But how many? One. You could see where somebody could take verse 5 all by itself, quote it out of its context, to say, even the Bible says there are many gods and many so-called gods and lords. Yeah, the key word there is what?
So-called.
So-called, right. For though there may be that there are so-called, there are called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as these are God's many and Lord's many. That's the King James Version. But to us, there is but one. Literally, to us, one God. You see the italics there? There is but. Doesn't belong there in the King James Version. Yet for us is one God, the Father, from whom all things and exist for him. One Lord, Jesus Christ, through whom all things exist. Through whom are all things. And we exist through him. Again, this passage is saying, who is the creator in Genesis chapter 1? Just like Colossians 2 said.
Jesus.
Jesus. Jesus was the lawgiver to Moses. Jesus was the one who created the planets, the stars and the moon. People think, oh, no, Jesus didn't exist until he was born. You don't understand anything then. Because this is all basic stuff. How God, he gave up his divinity and took on the form of a man and did not count it a thing to be clung to or grasped and held on to, but emptied himself to the form of a man and humbled himself to the point of death, even death on a cross. There was a book that said that, something like that. What was it, Philippians? Yeah, Philippians. So, now, what I want us to know here is you have to have knowledge to even get this far. But remember that knowledge without coupled with love and patience and understanding is nothing. By the way, Amos Isaac was one of the elders at Roosevelt. And one of the first guys there to resign and move. But that was encouraging because I didn't send him an invitation, so I don't know how he got it. Somebody shared it with him. Okay. But to us there is but one God, the Father, of whom are all things, and we in him, and one Lord Jesus, by whom are all things, and we by him. So we were made by him. I have a side verse in Ephesians again of chapter 3, verse 9. Okay, and to bring to light what is the administration of the mystery, which for ages has been hidden in God, who created all things. The manifold wisdom of God in the church. So, verse 7. However, not all men know this. And he's going to talk about then Christians who have different knowledge at different points in their Christian walk, whether they're weak or strong. He's not just talking about the knowledgeable versus the loving. He's saying your knowledge needs to be coupled with love, because knowledge alone just puffs you up, but love builds up. Okay. Then he's going to say, but not all men have this knowledge. But some, and he's talking about in the church here. It's going to be obvious. He's talking about even in the church in Corinth. But some, being accustomed to the idol, even unto now, even unto this point in their Christian life, eat food as if it were sacrificed to an idol. And when they do then, and their conscience being weak is defiled. Their conscience being weak. What is the word conscience? Even in English.
Is that
With-
mind?
What? Say it again.
Is that mind?
With mind, conscience. You break it down into two words. The word science means what?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. It comes from the Greek word gnosis. And con, like in Spanish, con means what?
With.
With. So conscience is with knowledge. So their conscience being weak, because not all men have this knowledge. He just said that, right? Their conscience being weak are defiled because they're participating in something they feel they shouldn't. In their weak knowledge, they're violating their conscience and doing it. And it's defiled.
So is it true that you can sin doing something that's not necessarily wrong?
Right. And I believe that's in the book of Romans as well. And we can look that up.
If you think it's wrong and you do it.
Right. To him it is sin. To him that thinks it's wrong and he does it anyway, to him it is sin. Sally, you going to look that up for me? If you believe it's wrong and you do it, even if it wasn't wrong, now you're sinning because you're defiling your conscience. Even if because your conscience, it wasn't according to mature knowledge or complete understanding, let's put it that way. And so as a result, you sinned because you thought you were doing wrong and you were willing to do it, rather than to abstain from whatever that action was. That's what's happening here with these people, that when they're eating meat sacrificed to idols. Now, in the marketplace in Corinth, which are like street markets, street vendors, most of the food reportedly was somehow so-called offered to idols.
I think what you were talking about is James chapter 4, verse 17.
What does it say?
Therefore, to one who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin.
That's one of the places. No, that's not the only one. That's another one. That's the one who does not do it and he knows the right thing to do. There's another one that says that if you do it, even though it's not wrong, but you believe it's wrong, you're sinning. Okay? So
That's going to be in Romans, probably.
yeah, it is. If you want me to take it, why don't I take the time and I'll just edit it? Okay. Let's see. Do I have it here as a cross-reference in my own Bible where I wrote it? Conscience being defiled, Roman 14:14. Let me see if that's it.
That's a cool background, Brian.
By the way, I know and am persuaded by the Lord that there is nothing unclean in itself, but to him that esteemeth anything as unclean, to him it is unclean. That's another one. But there's still another one that says, if he does it, to him it is sin. And that's the expression, to him it is sin. You want to look it up. To him it is sin. But anyway, there's a bunch of passages that talk about that. So if you have to wonder, I wonder if I should do this or not, don't do it. Especially if you think it is wrong, but you do it anyway. Now you're definitely sinning. You're willing to sin, even if God didn't count it as a sin. And that's a sin, isn't it? You understand that? You're willing to sin to do for whatever comfort reasons or private reasons or personal reasons that you may have, but I'm going to miss it I'm going to do it anyway. Well, guess what now? you violated your conscience, and you've sinned. It's that simple. So his conscience being weak is defiled. But food will not commend us to God. We will neither be the worse if we don't eat, nor the better if we do eat. You don't have to have that meal. If you think it's wrong to do something, don't do it. Right? But take care lest this liberty of yours, because I know that there are no idols. We know this. And you're trying to win some soul to Christ. You're trying to bring them, and you're having them over, and they'll think, well, he's eating something that's sacrificed to idols. Look, you can do without that meal for that person. Same thing with alcohol, a cigar, anything. If somebody believes that that's wrong, should you do it in front of them because they think it's wrong, and you're going to ask them to do it with you? That's what's involved. It's not just that they see you doing it. But watch. But take care lest this liberty of yours somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. So even though you know better, it's a stumbling block to who? I heard elders and preachers tell somebody else in the church, you know, you're a stumbling block to me in this or that. Really? Because the people that were talked about as having stumbling blocks put in front of them were weak, weren't they?
Dad, probably a good practical example of how this would, or one of the many practical ways that this could pop up in the church, that people could be mindful of weak brothers. Like, let's say that a particular brother or sister does not celebrate Christmas because they think that, because it was started by pagans and all this kind of reasoning, right? The church, knowing that brother's, let's just say, weakness there, should probably not therefore decorate the church building, right? Even though we know that the church is not the building, with Christmas decorations and the nativity scenes and all this kind of thing, because it would cause that weaker person to stumble. Whereas the individual members, a part of that congregation, can easily hold one day above another in their private life and decorate their house with a Christmas tree and all that kind of stuff. But they should be mindful of the weaker brother or sister.
Okay.
How such a thing could cause them to stumble, right?
It could. Well, that's the question: is how would it cause them to fall away from the faith?
They think because of their weakness of mind, that such a thing is a pagan holiday, a pagan ritual.
They would go back into paganism because of it?
No, but they may stop going to church.
Okay.
Because they think you're a hypocrite.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Good. Very good. Okay. Now, for if someone sees you who has knowledge, dining in an idol's temple, will not his conscience, if it is weak, be strengthened to eat things sacrificed to idols? That's how you're causing him to stumble. You're making somebody go back into sin, strengthened to eat those things because they saw you in a temple of idols eating. That's exactly what he's saying there, right? This is not the same as offending somebody. or even using it as an opportunity to teach that person, the idol is nothing. The temple is nothing. There's only one God. So you need to teach them, but you don't teach them by letting them just see you and they think, oh, that's okay then. Same thing with, let's say, use the word alcohol again and wine. Somebody's got an addiction problem. Should you be drinking in front of them and doing all that? Letting them think, oh, it makes no difference. And then they fall into the trap of addiction again. See? So it's better, what did he say earlier? To do without a meal. To do without. It's just better not to do it. Especially, oh, you're being a hypocrite if it's only you're not doing it in front of them. No, you're trying to help them. That's why you're not doing it in front of them. You understand it's nothing. But until they understand,
Then it is.
then it could be a stumbling stone because you're going to strengthen him to go back to idolatry. But through your knowledge, he who is weak is what? Verse 11.
Ruined.
Ruined. He's not talking about offended. He's not talking about, oh, that offends me what you're doing or what you're saying or what you teach. No, he's ruined. Right? When he talks about going back to eating the things sacrificed to idols in the temple, he's talking about sending them right back into the temple and getting into idolatry. He is ruined. The brother for whose sake Christ died. Christ gave up his life for him. You can give up a meal. Isn't that what he's saying here? Christ died for him. What are you prepared to do for him? Now, granted, he's weak. She's weak. She doesn't know. But your knowledge of knowing this could still ruin them if you have no love coupled with your knowledge. That's all he's saying here. It's pretty obvious to me. And thus, by sinning against the brethren and wounding their conscience. Now, who is he talking about? These people who would see you in the idol. This person for whom Christ died. No, Christ died for everybody. So he's talking about anybody and everybody. No. What does he say therefore? And thus sinning against who? Verse 12.
The brothers.
The brothers. And wounding whose conscience?
Theirs.
Their conscience.
And wound their weak conscience, the King James will say.
Their conscience when it is weak. Mm-hmm.
You sin against, now, not that person alone. Now who you're sinning against?
Jesus.
Well, now you sin against Christ.
Now you're sinning against Christ. Therefore, if food causes my brother to stumble, now he's not talking about people just outside in the world. He could be even an application to that. Could you do without a meal so you don't strengthen somebody you're trying to study the gospel with? Sure. It would apply. Because when did Christ die for us? While we were his friends and Christians? While we were yet sinners, while we were yet enemies, the book of Romans says, Christ died for us. Therefore, if food causes my brother to stumble, I will never eat again. What?
I will never eat meat again.
I will never eat anything again. I will starve. No, I will never eat meat again, that I might not cause my brother to stumble.
It's quite an interesting passage.
Chapter 10, verse 31 to 33. We're going to hit on the same thing again, but I'll read it now. Whether then you eat or you drink, whatever you do, do all to the glory of God, giving no offense either to Jews or to Greeks or to the church of God. Just as I also please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of the many, that they may be what? Unoffended.
They may be saved.
That they may be saved. Now, when he's talking about a rock of offense, then, that I give no offense either to Jews or the Greeks, he's not saying like we give offense, like I'm offended by what you said. No, you hurt my feelings. You make me angry. You disappoint me. Is he talking about in these things, these people as being just disappointed or lost? That they're offended, meaning they're upset by what you said? No, he's not talking about somebody who's, just the way you speak is offensive. In fact, what did they say about Paul's speech?
It's weak and contemptible.
Yeah, and it's offensive. So wherefore, therefore, verse 13, if food causes my brother to stumble, I'll never eat meat again. You may know how to eat meat, and that it's okay to eat meat, any meat, even sacrificed to idols. Because the idol is nothing. Now, by the way, you may have to eat what you don't like to not cause somebody offense. You know that?
Say that again.
It's the opposite is also true. I've seen people go to somebody's house and refuse to eat what was put in front of them. I don't like it. I don't like fish, or I don't like steak, or I don't eat this and I don't eat that. Looking for a passage here.
Now, are you saying that saying at a brother's house, I won't eat this because I don't like it, that's causing the person who made it to stumble?
It could be, because Jesus told us in Luke 10, verse 8, and whatever city you enter, and they receive you, eat what is set before you. Period.
Octopus legs.
I don't care what it is. Eat what is set before you. They're trying to be hospitable and you're turning it down. You think that could cause some people to be more than offended? Now, I got to tell you, if they were going to put locusts in front of me, that would be tough. But I've eaten things that have been put in front of me that I didn't care for, that grossed me out, especially the first time I had octopus tentacles at an Italian Christmas Eve feast at a friend's house when I was a kid, young, like 18, 19. Whew. I mean, big tentacles, like this long, and nice, good-sized suction cups on them and everything. It was disgusting. Octopus salad.
was going to say, did they have anything else to eat besides octopus salad?
Yeah, snails, all kinds of gross stuff.
Oh, these are disgusting people. No, I'm kidding. I don't mean that.
There's a passage.
Italian, probably.
We're going to see this in another part of the book that he says, whatever they put in front of you, eat it without asking questions. Eat it without asking questions. Can you find where that is?
Yeah, for conscience sake.
No, without asking questions. That's the word. That's the words he uses. 1032, is it? No.
Eat anything that is sold in the market, the meat market, without asking questions for
There you
conscience
go.
sake.
Where is that?
It's 1025.
1025. There you go. So he's telling you.
And again in 1027.
And if an unbeliever invites you in and you wish to go, eat anything that's set before you without asking questions for conscience sake. In other words, you don't have to ask any questions. It's okay. You know it's okay. You don't have to ask, well, will you be offended by this? You don't have to look for trouble. That's what he's saying there. Now he's talking about the unbelievers, right? Chapter 8, he's talking about the believers, the brethren. You can make them stumble. Here, it's the unbelievers. In all things, we're putting ourselves out, aren't we? By not eating things we want to eat and know it's okay, or eating, or by eating things that we really don't want to eat. Not eating things we want to eat or eating things we don't want to eat.
So this whole thing really strengthens the point that what you do is it is more important that it isn't for you, but it is good for others.
There you go. Do unto others as you have them do to you. Regarding other people is more important than yourself. All those verses.
Dad, the passage that we just referenced in 1 Corinthians 10, 27 through 30, seems to, on the surface, conflict with verse 13 of chapter 8. He says, therefore, if food causes my brother to sin, I will never eat meat again.
Yes.
So that I will not cause my brother to sin. Now, the implications of that are pretty stunning. But he says essentially the opposite.
Yes, because now you're dealing with unbelievers in chapter 20 and 10:27. Now, if anyone of the unbelievers invites you in, and then they tell you, oh, by the way, you didn't ask any questions, so you're eating. And you go, by the way, you're eating meat sacrificed to idols. Now, what do you think of that?
Well, read 28, Brian. I don't think it's saying something different. It's saying the same thing. It doesn't matter if you eat the meat sacrificed to idols because you know that the idols aren't real or whatever. But what does matter is that if it causes other people to think
they know about you,
right, and to think that you're participating and it causes them to stumble. So that's what 28 says.
So,
Right, but he says in
28 says if they informed you.
You're still looking out for the other person regardless of the circumstance. And
Right.
so he says, verse 29, I do not mean your conscience, but his.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But then he said, this is what I was getting at. For why should my liberty be determined by somebody else's conscience? If I partake with thankfulness, why am I denounced because of that for which I give thanks?
Because the point of eating is to give glory to God.
Right, I get that. But how does that jibe with verse 13?
I don't understand, because he says, just as I please, in all things I please all men, that in all things not seeking my own profit, but the profit of the many, that they may be saved. The goal is their salvation. Again, Christianity is a thinking man's religion or a thinking woman's religion, isn't it? Because It's examining the circumstance, even when you're going in to eat someplace. Now, let me give you another illustration. Rudy's Bar and Grill. They have great hamburgers there, great French fries, great deals on food, right? And it's a bar as well. Is it wrong to go in there and have a meal? Well, it could be, couldn't it? Not because some member of the church is offended by you going in there and thinks you're a sinner because you're doing it. That's not what he's talking about in either passage. You can offend people with the tone of your voice. I do all the time. My cadence, speech cadence, or my look on my face. Some things, you know, and that's just the way it is. And if they're into being offended, they'll be offended. That's just the way it is. Not much I can do about it, other than wear a mask. But what can we do? Well, if somebody's strengthened to either go back to idol worship or think it's great to go into bars, and I saw Kent doing it, so it must be okay. But they're saddling up to the bar and having, you know, 4 Harvey Wallbangers or 3 Long Island iced teas and doing shots of what do they call that? Jägermeister or something like that. I heard these things on TV. So, you know what? If they're doing that and they think it's okay for me to do that now because they saw me walk into a Rudy's, I have to be concerned about who's seeing me. Well, now you just shouldn't even think about it because then you don't have to worry about anybody seeing you. No, he said in chapter 8, if you go into a temple to eat meat, that doesn't mean anything. But if they tell you, right? If they see you going in there and doing this, that's what makes it different because now they think, oh, this guy's got liberty. If someone sees you, verse 10 of chapter 8, who has knowledge dining at an idol's temple, will not his conscience, if it is weak, be strengthened to eat the things sacrificed to idols, to be strengthened to do the booze or whatever it is.
So he didn't tell them, don't eat meat in an idol's temple. He just said, be careful if there's a weak brother there.
Or if there's somebody
don't do it.
And it's going to, and then you just eat without, if you go into somebody's home and they put food before you, don't ask questions, just eat. But now if they stop and go, by the way, you know what you're doing? Now what do you got to do?
Not eat.
Not eat.
Well, just to use your example of Rudy's, like there's nothing wrong with you going to Rudy's, but if you're going there with, let's say, a group of brothers and one of them is a recovering alcoholic,
right?
You probably shouldn't bring him there because he's weak to that particular temptation.
But but they also have to be strong enough to know that it's not the place where you're eating, it's what you're doing. Now, could it be the place where you're eating? Yeah, if it's a topless bar. There's all kinds of things. There's a lot of restaurants that have a bar. That means you can't go to Red Lobster anymore, right? Or the Miller Ale House. Or any of these restaurants that almost all of them have some kind of a bar.
Why would you not be allowed to go to a bar? I'm confused.
There's a lot of people.
A lot of people would give you grief about that.
I used to say,
because of alcohol or
yes,
because of
I used to even say years ago, a bar to heaven, a gate to hell. Whoever named it well.
Well, I understand that it could be because it could lead to overindulgence, but just the idea of alcohol at all is not
right.
And this is because it's a bar. It's because it's a bar, not technically because they serve wine or something like that.
I'm getting at is like there's something about the bar itself is seen as.
Oh yeah. So, and especially when you're in the what they call a dry city, or it used to be dry states. Now I don't think there's any dry states, but there are some still dry cities.
Counties.
Dry counties and where you can't order anything alcoholic anywhere.
Yeah, in Massachusetts, there's a couple. I think
So,
Massachusetts.
but I'm bringing it up as an illustration. But call it octopus tentacles instead of booze. Call it. But you know what? Call it a crab fest or a oyster festival, because Jews are not supposed to eat what?
Shellfish.
Any kind. Crabs, lobster, oysters, clams, none of it. So when I've gone out to dinner with Jewish people, I've asked, like, Eileen, would you guys be offended if I ordered this? Would you have a problem with it? Because I didn't want to hurt them. But I don't mean offended meaning, oh, he's disgusting. No, I mean offended by, I don't want to hear anything this guy has to say about God, because he's sacrilegious to God's command by eating shellfish, according to the old covenant. So until
Now,
I get a chance,
now, if you know that makes your brother or sister stumble, will you never eat shellfish again?
right?
That's the implications of
Yes.
verse 13.
Yeah, but
We're
he's
kind of skipping over that.
yeah, he's speaking in hyperbole, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's implied that he's not going to eat it in front of them. Like,
Right.
never eating it again is kind of like an exaggeration. Like, he's like, I'll do whatever it takes.
But he's making the point in hyperbole that nothing is as important as these conscious people for whom Christ died. That's it.
I mean, we would it would be in conflict. Well, that's what I was trying to point out before, with many other different things that he's said, that it has to be hyperbole, what he's saying there. I don't think that he would never eat meat again just because
Right.
a brother or sister would
Right.
have a problem with meat, even though that's exactly what he says.
And it's not just meat, it's the meat that's sacrificed to idols. But you know what? If I go out with a vegan to dinner, I'm going to look for some kind of salad. Just not to give him grief. Can I do without? I'll never eat salad again if it causes my brother to stumble. I'm speaking in hyperbole, but that's the same idea.
I mean, that's his conclusion. That's his sock in the mouth there.
Yeah, but it's like the Sermon on the Mount, where it's like, it's better to poke your own eye out, if your eye causes.
Rip your eye out and take your right hand and throw it, cut it off and throw it far away. Oh,
right. It's just emphasizing how important it is to not make your brother stumble, or not,
or an unsaved person in chapter 10, which we'll get into.
Or someone you're hoping to convert, presumably, right?
The whole goal is not your personal comfort, even though you may know better. But now when I talk to people in the church and they're a preacher or an elder or a deacon, and they're giving me grief about some of these things, they're not supposed to be the weaker brother, are they?
No, but isn't it like kind of like what Paul does a lot, and Timothy also, where it's like he does things he knows he doesn't have to do, but for the sake of reaching people and reaching men, like he pays the temple tax and shaves his head. He has Timothy get circumcised, even though he knows he doesn't need to do that. It will help Timothy save more souls.
No. Yes, I'm talking about in the church when somebody comes up to you and says, "I'm offended that you are doing this, or that you believe this, or you believe that." Or that you said this and you said that. And I say, number one, you're making me stumble. Oh, you're going to fall away because of this? No, I just don't like what you're doing. Oh, so you use the word stumble for equivalent to don't like. That's not what Paul's talking about here in either passage, that they don't like it. I mean, some guys like blondes and some guys like brunettes. Some guys like milk and some guys like water.
If he didn't like it to the point where he left the congregation over it.
And again, that may be his attitude, though, especially if he can't be taught, especially if he should be not a weak brother. That's my point.
But it would always be their attitude. It would always be their problem.
Right. And they don't want to be educated and learn and get some knowledge.
No, but the point, my point is that you make concessions for them on account of their weakness.
You do, but you also have to teach them.
Yeah.
There were weak brothers in the church when Timothy and Titus went to those congregations as young preachers, evangelists, and he had to reprove, rebuke, and exhort.
Just for another example, since I was bringing up circumcision before, you could look at what Paul did with Titus.
Right.
Like you could make the argument, oh, those were weak brothers, so just have Titus get circumcised. But no, like not always the case. You know what I mean? That's not always the case. Sometimes you have to stand up and be like, no, you guys are wrong. You know?
Right.
Good point. Good point, Uncle Sal.
Right. You just got to say, no, I'm not bowing to every weak brother's whim. You can't do that either. You're not supposed to.
Yeah, you have to have the discernment to know the difference.
And you need to strengthen those who are weak and feeble-kneed, the Bible says. So if they've got a problem, brother, let's sit down and talk and study it out. No, I don't want to. Well, then they're telling me they want to remain weak and judgmental. Right? No? Yeah. Is that a good, healthy position for them to be in with the Lord? No, absolutely not. So I examine myself. Well, for example, if I bring some people from West Texas to come visit me in Oklahoma, and I wanted to take them to the beach, that has been a problem for some. Because they're taught in the Church of Christ, we don't have mixed bathing. I go, mixed bathing? What do you mix in the bath? What are you talking about? And they're talking about men and women going to the beach together and going swimming. And it's just wrong. And they shouldn't do it. Now, if they feel that way, should I take them to the beach? No, especially if they're going to look at women and ogle them and think that they're looking at bodies and all this other stuff. Because there is still a choice of where you gaze and where you look and what you see and all kinds of things.
It's the same thing as taking the alcoholic to the bar. It's if that is something that causes them to stumble going to a beach, then don't bring them to the beach. They have a different.
Now, if they say to you, they come up to you and say, brother, before you place membership in this congregation, we need to know if you believe in going to the beach with women. Don't think that people haven't asked those questions of other people.
Well, that's bizarre.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's kind of really,
Do you believe in a church building that can have a kitchen in it?
Right. This is along the lines of those types of things. You will get people that will quiz you on that kind of stuff.
And look to divide. When we get calls from people that see the website and they say, what do you believe? You know, and what do you believe on this subject and that subject? And do you have women preachers and all kinds of stuff? I'm willing to answer all the questions biblically. Because otherwise they don't know. Just because you have Church of Christ over the door doesn't mean much, does it? It depends on whether they are or not. And that depends on their walk and their obedience to the word, and they're willing to love and build up, edify. And edify means to build up, to lift up. Okay, that's tonight's study. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I appreciate it, and the questions and the remarks. I think it was good. Next week, we're getting into the whole thing about preacher support.
just real quick about the kitchen.
Go ahead.
about the kitchens. That's just so silly to me because there's so many. Greet also the church that meets at their house.
Yeah.
The Aquila and Priscilla greet you warmly in the Lord, and so does the church that meets at their house.
Yeah.
They make a separation there. They think that the house is different. Stacy, this was, by the way, Stacy's church was a no kitchens church.
Philemon, and to the church that meets in your home.
Yeah, they make an exception
Kitchen
because it's not the church building.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. What's a church building? It's just a meeting house.
There
Right.
were no church buildings until the three.
They weren't even allowed to own property until the late 4th
300.
century.
Right.
Yeah. I trust me, I drilled all that into her head, and she got it eventually. But it's still kind of, she was raised like that, so it's still a thing that is triggering.
It could be a trigger, right? That's a good. It could be a trigger question, and unfortunately, when you have people that are raised in the church and don't ask a lot of questions and just go to the Sunday morning, Sunday evening, Wednesday night Bible class and they're learning their classes out of some brother's workbook on a Sunday morning or a Sunday evening or a Wednesday night. And it's stuff that's in the same stuff that's in the track rack or whatever in the foyer. They're not going to get a lot of what we're discussing tonight. I know because I've been around the church for a half century and in the church for a half century plus. And I'm telling you, there's all kinds of situations and a lot of it is based on ignorance. They're ignorant of. I didn't say they're stupid. I said they're ignorant. What's the difference between ignorant and stupid? Ignorant is not knowing something, and stupid is determined to stay that way. Okay? To be happy being ignorant, that's stupid. To not want to learn. And become the strong brother and not the weak one. But notice how this is contrasting the strong versus the weak.
Believer versus not believer.
Believer versus unbeliever, strong versus weak. So that's why it's just especially a pet peeve for me when I'll hear preachers, elders, and deacons getting their underwear in a bunch over stuff that they shouldn't. They ought to know better. By reason of time, like the Hebrew writer said, they ought to be teachers. But they're not. They're just rabbiting what somebody else said. And out of respect and dedication, they'll just keep rabbiting it, even if it's not really solidly in the book.
Well, it's the same thing with denominational churches where they believe a certain thing and that's it. It has nothing to do with the scriptures whatsoever. It just that's what they were told and that's it.
Right. I was raised a Lutheran. I'm going to die a Lutheran or whatever. So anyway, thank you everybody for coming. I hope you're getting something out of this. I hope it's helping, challenging you. I would suggest always after these studies that you go back and read over what we covered on your own and see if it doesn't make sense to you and that dawn of realization hits you and go, oh, wow, yeah. Because that's what you need. Then we can go on to the next chapter, which we're going to, Lord willing, next week.
Thanks for being a part of that study segment. I promise you that, Lord willing, there's more to come. With the understanding that the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure, many of these studies have been broken up into a series of bite-sized segments. So be sure to look for the next segment in each Bible study subject, so you won't miss out on any important information. Please like and subscribe if you feel that this lesson's helped you, and God bless you in your search for truth.